At a crowded airport, a humble woman approaches a businessman. Suddenly, even surrounded by his family, she kisses him unexpectedly. The scene causes outrage and confusion among everyone. When they find out the reason, everyone goes pale. Remember to subscribe to the channel before hearing this story. The Chicago International Airport buzzed with its usual activity on a crisp autumn afternoon. The hum of conversations blended with the sound of luggage carts and intermittent flight announcements. Among the well-dressed crowd moving through the main hall, one figure stood out from the rest. Emily Thompson, wearing a simple and worn dress, walked with determined steps toward a particular group of people. Her brown eyes, though tired, held a glimmer of resolve. In her hands, a crumpled paper trembled slightly, the only sign of her inner nervousness. At the front of the group she observed was William Carter, one of the most influential businessmen in the country. Tall and elegant in his Italian suit, he smiled as he chatted with his wife, Elizabeth Carter, a woman of striking presence and aristocratic bearing. Around them, 3 security guards maintained a discreet but vigilant distance. Emily took a deep breath, clutching the paper between her fingers. It was now or never. Her legs trembled, but she kept walking. Each step brought her closer to the man who years ago had walked into her small cafe during one of the most crucial moments of her life. When she was just a few meters away, one of the guards noticed her approach and stepped forward, but Emily was quicker. With an agility that surprised everyone, including herself, she dodged the guard and in one fluid motion reached William. Time seemed to freeze as she cupped his face in her hands and kissed him. Chaos erupted instantly. Elizabeth let out a cry of indignation. The guards moved in, and several people around them stopped to watch the scene. Emily was roughly pulled away, but she kept her eyes locked on William, who stared at her with an expression of absolute bewilderment. "You don't recognize me?" Emily asked, her voice trembling with emotion. That night at the cafe, the cup of hot chocolate. William's face changed dramatically. His eyes widened, and his expression shifted from confusion to recognition. A wave of memories hit him like a tsunami. The heavy rain, the despair, the farewell letter, and that waitress who had changed everything with a simple act of kindness. "Stop!" his voice thundered through the hall. "Let her go, immediately!" The guards hesitated but obeyed. Elizabeth looked from one to the other, completely lost. "William, do you know this woman?" "I do," he replied, his voice heavy with emotion. "This woman saved my life." A circle of onlookers had already formed around them. William realized this wasn't the right place for the conversation they needed to have. With a decisive gesture, he asked one of the guards to guide them to a reserved VIP lounge. Emily followed them, still clutching the crumpled paper tightly. Her heart raced, but she had taken the first step. Now she needed to tell her story, and hope that William would remember not just that night, but also the promise they had made to each other. As they walked through the exclusive corridors of the airport, Emily watched William's broad back, thinking about how much his life had changed since that rainy night. The successful businessman in front of her was unrecognizable compared to the broken man who had walked into her cafe years ago. Elizabeth followed closely, her high heels echoing on the marble floor, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. The guards maintained a respectful distance but remained alert. The contrast between the luxury surrounding them and Emily's simplicity couldn't have been greater, but she held her head high, sustained by the strength of her mission. When they reached the VIP lounge, William asked everyone to leave except his wife. The room was elegant and cozy, with leather armchairs and a privileged view of the runway. Emily sat down, feeling the weight of all those years of waiting finally coming to an end. "Now," William said, sitting across from her, "tell me everything from the beginning." Emily unfolded the crumpled paper in her hands, revealing an old, faded photograph. In it, 2 people smiled in front of a small cafe. Her, younger, and a more William, who was unrecognizable, with deep bags under his eyes and a hesitant but genuine smile. "Do you remember what you promised me that night?" she asked, her voice low but firm. "You said that if I ever needed help." William completed the sentence, his eyes fixed on the photograph. "I would be there for you, just as you were for me." Elizabeth watched the scene with a mix of confusion and curiosity, beginning to realized that there was much more to this story than a scandalous kiss at the airport. "It was exactly 7 years ago," Emily began, her soft voice filling the VIP lounge. "It was a stormy night, the kind where no one should be out on the streets. The coffee shop was practically empty, and I was about to close when you walked in." William closed his eyes, the memories of that night returning with startling clarity. Elizabeth adjusted herself in the chair, her eyes shifting between her husband and this strange woman who seemed to know a part of his life that she was completely unaware of. "You were drenched," Emily continued, "but it wasn't just the rain. There was something in your eyes, a void that scared me. We serve coffee to customers every day. We see hundreds of different expressions, but that one was different." William opened his eyes, meeting Emily's gaze. "I had lost everything," he explained to Elizabeth, who was listening intently. "The company I had built from scratch was bankrupt. My partners had betrayed me, and I was drowning in debts I couldn't see a way to pay." "You ordered a coffee," Emily went on, "and sat there, staring out the window for almost an hour. You didn't touch the cup. Then you got up to leave, leaving only a folded note on the table." Elizabeth swallowed hard, beginning to understand the gravity of the situation. William stood up, walking over to the window of the VIP lounge, watching the planes take off and land. "Something told me that note wasn't a thank you message," Emily continued. "When I read it, my heart froze. It was a farewell letter. You had planned every detail, including instructions on how to contact your family." "I was determined," William admitted, his voice choked. "I had even chosen the place, the old bridge at the end of Main Street." Emily stood up, approaching him with soft steps. "I didn't think twice. I closed the coffee shop and ran out into the rain. I found you already on the bridge, soaked, looking down." Elizabeth brought her hands to her mouth, her eyes welling up. She had never imagined that her husband, always so strong and decisive, had gone through such a dark moment. "What did you say to me that night?" William asked, turning to Emily, a gentle smile on his lips. "I told you that the coffee at the shop was terrible," Emily replied, laughing softly, "but that my hot chocolate was the best in town, and that it would be a shame if you never got to try it." "It was something so simple," William remarked, sitting back down. "A stranger offering hot chocolate on a stormy night, but it was enough to make me stop and think." "We went back to the coffee shop," Emily continued. "We talked until dawn. You told me about the problems with the company, the betrayal of your partners, how you had lost confidence in yourself. And you showed me that there was still hope," William finished. "You helped me reorganize my thoughts, gave me the strength to fight again. It was you who suggested I look for international investors to leverage my contacts abroad." Elizabeth now watched the interaction between the two with new eyes. There was no longer jealousy or suspicion in her gaze, only deep gratitude for this woman who had saved her husband's life. "We met every night for a month," Emily recalled. "You would come to the coffee shop, have hot chocolate, and we would plan the next steps. I saw your transformation day by day. I saw hope return to your eyes. And then I got the first investor," William smiled. "A Japanese businessman who believed in my project. It was the fresh start I needed." "The last time we saw each other," Emily said, her voice growing more serious, "you promised that if I ever needed help, I could come to you. I've held on to that promise all these years, hoping I'd never have to use it." William leaned forward, noticing the shift in Emily's tone. "What happened? Why did you come to me now?" Emily took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly as she reached for her bag. From it, she pulled out an envelope containing medical test results. "3 months ago, I found out I have the same condition that took my mother. The doctors say treatment is possible, but it's too expensive," William finished, finally understanding the reason for their dramatic meeting at the airport. Elizabeth stood up, moving closer to Emily. "Why did you wait so long to come to us?" "I tried to handle it on my own," Emily replied, silent tears streaming down her face. "I sold the cafe, used all my savings, but it wasn't enough. Time is running out and I—" Her voice broke. William knelt before her, holding her hands in his. "You gave me a second chance at life. Now it's my turn to repay you." The sun was beginning to set as the limousine passed through the gates of the Carter estate. Emily watched through the tinted windows as the immaculate gardens and the imposing mansion rose before her. It was a world completely different from hers, and she couldn't help but feel out of place. "Welcome to your new home," William announced as the driver opened the car door. Elizabeth, who had called ahead to prepare everything, was already at the main entrance, speaking with the housekeeper. "It's very kind of you," Emily began, "but I don't need to stay here. Just help with the treatment would be more than enough." "Not a chance," Elizabeth interrupted, surprising Emily with her firmness. "You need constant care, and here we'll make sure you get the best treatment possible." The change in Elizabeth's attitude was remarkable. Her initial distrust had transformed into an almost maternal determination to help. Emily realized that, just as she had seen beyond William's desperate facade years ago, Elizabeth now saw beyond her simple appearance. "Olivia," Elizabeth called, and the housekeeper approached. "Please show Emily to the room we prepared and arrange some suitable clothes for her. You don't have to go to the trouble." Emily tried to protest, but William gently interrupted her. "Emily, you spent years holding on to that promise, waiting until the last possible moment to ask for help. Let us do this right." As she followed Olivia through the luxurious halls of the mansion, Emily couldn't help but notice the photographs on the walls. They were records of William's rise, business inaugurations, awards, charity events. In all of them, he smiled, confidently with Elizabeth by his side. The room assigned to her was larger than her entire old apartment. A king-size bed dominated the space, and French windows opened onto a balcony overlooking the gardens. In the closet, several new outfits were already hanging. "Mrs. Elizabeth thought of everything," Olivia commented, noticing Emily's surprised expression. "She may seem tough, but she has a huge heart." After a relaxing bath and dressed in new clothes, Emily went downstairs for dinner. The table was set for 3, and the delicious aroma of food made her stomach growl, reminding her that she had barely eaten all day. "Tomorrow morning we already have an appointment with Dr. Harrison," William informed as they served dinner. "He's one of the best specialists in the country." "How did you manage to get an appointment so quickly?" Emily asked, surprised. Elizabeth smiled. "Let's just say some doors open more easily when you have the right connections. Besides, William explained the situation, and the doctor was particularly interested in your case." During dinner, the conversation flowed naturally. Emily shared how she had kept the coffee shop running all those years, about the regular customers, who had become friends, and the stories she had witnessed behind the counter. "And you never thought about getting married?" Elizabeth asked, her curiosity genuine. Emily hesitated for a moment. "There was someone a few years ago, but when I found out about the illness, I chose to step away. I didn't want to be a burden to anyone." "That's your specialty, isn't it?" William observed. "Taking care of others but never letting anyone take care of you." His words hit Emily hard. It was true. Since she was young, caring for her sick mother, she had learned to be the provider, the caretaker. Accepting help for her was like admitting defeat. "Things are going to change now," Elizabeth declared, her voice leaving no room for argument. "You're not alone in this fight anymore." After dinner, as they sat in the living room, William received an important call. While he talked on the phone, Elizabeth approached Emily. "You know," she began, her voice soft, "I've always wondered what changed William back then. He never talked about that difficult period, but I noticed the transformation. When we met, a year later, he was already a different man." Emily watched William through the glass door to the balcony, gesturing as he spoke on the phone. "Sometimes, all a person needs is someone who believes in them. And now it's our turn to believe in you," Elizabeth replied, holding Emily's hand. "Tomorrow we start a new chapter. It won't be easy, but we'll be by your side every step of the way." That night, lying in the luxurious bed of her new room, Emily finally let the tears fall. They weren't tears of sadness or fear, but of gratitude. For the first time in a long while, she felt she didn't have to be strong alone. Outside, the full moon illuminated the mansion's gardens, and a gentle breeze swayed the curtains. Emily fell asleep thinking about how life takes curious turns. 7 years ago, she had saved a man by offering hot chocolate on a stormy night. Now, That same man and his wife were willing to move mountains to save her. Dr. Harrison's private clinic occupied an entire floor in one of the city's most modern buildings. Emily watched through the panoramic elevator windows as the city awoke under the golden morning light. William and Elizabeth were by her side, both exuding a confidence she tried to absorb. Dr. Harrison is known for his holistic approach, William explained as they walked down the hallway. He doesn't just treat the illness but the patient as a whole. The waiting room was a cozy environment with soft music and aromatherapy. Even so, Emily couldn't relax. Her hands nervously clutched the folder containing her previous test results. "Emily Thompson?" called a cheerful nurse. To Emily's surprise, both William and Elizabeth Carter stood up to accompany her. Dr. Harrison's office was spacious and well lit, with an impressive view of the city. The doctor, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, greeted them with a warm smile. "William told me your story," he began after introductions. "It's quite interesting. The pattern you mentioned about your mother having the same condition." Emily nodded, handing over her test results. "It started the same way. First, extreme fatigue, then joint pain." Dr. Harrison carefully examined the results, occasionally jotting down notes. "You said your mother also had a special ability to sense when people were in pain." The question caught Emily off guard. She hadn't mentioned that to William and Elizabeth. How do you know that?" "I've been studying similar cases for years," he replied, leaning forward in his chair. "It's rare, but there are families that exhibit an interesting pattern. Women with an extraordinary sensitivity to others' suffering, often accompanied by this specific condition." Elizabeth and William exchanged intrigued glances. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. "What exactly does that mean, Doctor?" Elizabeth asked. "It means we're not just dealing with a common illness," Dr. Harrison explained. "There's a unique genetic component here, something that has been passed down from mother to daughter for generations." He stood up and walked over to a digital screen on the wall where he projected some images. "Look at these scans. The red areas show heightened brain activity in regions typically associated with empathy and emotional perception." "That explains a lot," Emily murmured, thinking of all the times she had inexplicably felt others' pain, like that night with William. "The problem," the doctor continued, "is that this extraordinary sensitivity comes at a cost. The body seems to go into a state of overload, primarily affecting the immune system." "Is there a treatment?" William asked, his voice tense. "Yes, but it will need to be personalized," Dr. Harrison replied. "Beyond conventional medication, I suggest an approach that includes alternative therapies and, most importantly, developing techniques to manage this special sensitivity." He turned to Emily. "You need to learn to set boundaries to protect yourself. Your ability to help others is a gift, but it can't come at the expense of your own health." The next 2 hours were dedicated to additional tests and the development of a detailed treatment plan. Emily learned that she would need weekly therapy sessions, specific medications, and significant lifestyle changes. "There's one more thing," Dr. Harrison said before concluding the appointment. "There's an international research group studying cases like yours. With your permission, I'd like to include your case in the study. It could help us better understand this condition and perhaps develop more effective treatments." Emily looked at William and Elizabeth, who nodded encouragingly. "If this can help others like me, I accept." As they left the clinic, the sun was already high in the sky. Elizabeth insisted on stopping for lunch at a nearby restaurant, arguing that they needed to process all the information they had received. "It's a lot to take in," Emily admitted, playing with the food on her plate. "But now we have a path forward," William replied. "And more importantly, we understand better what's going on." "You know what's most amazing?" Elizabeth commented. "Thoughtful. Your gift. It perfectly explains how you managed to save William that night. You literally felt his pain." Emily had never thought of it that way. She had always believed that her tendency to help others was just part of her personality. Now she was beginning to understand that it was something deeper, something that ran in her veins, passed down through generations. "What worries me," she confessed, "is the cost of the treatment. Even with all your help—" "Don't even finish that sentence," William interrupted. Money is not an issue. Besides, I'm sure your participation in the research could open doors to new experimental treatments. As they drove back to the mansion, Emily watched the city through the car window, thinking about how her life had completely changed in less than 24 hours. From a lonely woman battling a mysterious illness, she had become part of something bigger, something that could help understand not only her condition, but also this special gift she shared with other women in her lineage. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity for Emily. Her routine now included a series of treatments, consultations, and therapy sessions. The Carter mansion had become not only her new home, but a refuge where she could focus entirely on her recovery. On a sunny afternoon, Emily was sitting in the garden, flipping through a book on meditation that her therapist had recommended. Elizabeth approached, carrying a tray with tea and cookies. "How are you feeling today?" Elizabeth asked, sitting down beside her. Emily smiled softly. "Better, I think. The new medications seem to be working. The pain has lessened." "And what about your gift?" Elizabeth hesitated, still not entirely comfortable talking about Emily's special ability. "It's strange," Emily admitted. "Since I started the energy protection techniques that Dr. Harper taught me, I feel more in control. I still sense others' emotions, but they don't affect me as much." Elizabeth nodded, pouring the tea. "William mentioned that Dr. Harrison got in touch. It seems they found something in your genetic tests." Emily felt a chill in her stomach. Although she was curious about her condition, part of her feared what they might discover. "What did he say?" "He didn't go into details. He wants to discuss it in person. He scheduled an appointment for tomorrow." That night, Emily had trouble sleeping. Her mind was filled with questions. What could the tests have revealed? Would it be something positive or negative for her treatment? The next morning, the tension was palpable in Dr. Harrison's office. Mendes, William and Elizabeth insisted on accompanying Emily, forming a circle of support around her. "Well, I have some interesting news," Dr. Harrison began, his tone mixing enthusiasm and caution. "We analyzed your DNA and compared it to other known cases similar to yours." He paused, as if carefully choosing his next words. "We discovered a unique genetic variation. It appears to be directly linked to your empathic sensitivity and possibly to your health condition." "What exactly does that mean?" William asked, leaning forward in his chair. "It means we're dealing with something truly special," the doctor replied. "This variation isn't a random mutation. It's too complex in structure to be accidental. It's as if it were designed." A heavy silence fell over the room. Emily felt her heart race. "Designed? What do you mean?" "It's still a developing theory," Dr. Harrison explained. "But some researchers believe this genetic trait could be the result of a very ancient and specific evolutionary adaptation. A directed evolution to create individuals with an extraordinary capacity for empathy and emotional healing." Elizabeth held Emily's hand, offering silent support. William seemed both fascinated and concerned at the same time. "The thing is," the doctor continued, "this ability comes at a cost. The constant emotional stress of absorbing others' suffering ends up overwhelming the immune system, leading to the condition you and your mother developed." Emily processed the information slowly. "So what can I do? Is there any way to turn it off?" Dr. Harrison smiled gently. "It's not about turning it off, Emily. It's part of who you are. The goal now is to learn how to control and channel this ability in a healthy way." He stood up and walked over to a shelf where he retrieved an old book. "This was sent to me by a colleague, an anthropologist. It contains records of an indigenous tribe from the Amazon. They speak of healing women with abilities very similar to yours." Emily took the book carefully, feeling the weight of history in her hands. The yellowed pages contained drawings and text in a language she didn't understand, but the illustrations showed women performing what appeared to be healing rituals. "What does this mean for her treatment?" William asked, his voice betraying a mix of hope and concern. "It means we need to expand our approach," Dr. Harrison replied. "In addition to conventional medical treatment, we'll incorporate ancient healing and energy control techniques. The idea is to help Emily use her gift without it harming her. Leaving the office, Emily felt as if she had just discovered a new world, a world where her sensitivity wasn't a weakness or a curse, but an ancestral gift passed down through generations. "How are you feeling?" Elizabeth asked softly as they got into the car. Emily looked out the window, watching the bustling city, honestly scared and strangely hopeful. "It's like I finally understand a part of myself that always seemed like a mystery." William, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. "You know what this means, don't you? You didn't just save my life that night. You did exactly what you were, designed to do." William's words hit Emily like a revelation. Her entire life she had felt different, as if she carried an invisible burden. Now she realized that this burden was actually a purpose. As the car drove through the streets of Chicago, Emily felt a new determination growing within her. She didn't know exactly what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, she felt she was on the right path to finding out. The days following the revelation in Dr. Harrison's office were filled with intense reflection for Emily. The Carter mansion, once a temporary refuge, had now become a sanctuary where she could explore the complexities of her newly discovered gift. One morning, as she walked through the well-kept gardens of the estate, Emily was surprised by William, who seemed to have been waiting for her. "Good morning," he greeted her with a warm smile. "I hope I'm not interrupting your morning walk." Emily smiled back. "Not at all. In fact, it's nice to have company." They walked side by side in comfortable silence for a few minutes until William spoke again. "You know, I've been thinking a lot about what Dr. Harrison told us, about your gift and how it manifested that night at the cafe." Emily nodded, encouraging him to continue. "I wonder how many other lives you might have touched without even realizing it." The question caught Emily off guard. She had never thought about it that way. "I don't know. I always thought I was just good at listening to people." William stopped walking, turning to face her. "Emily, you did much more than listen to me that night. You saw me, truly saw me, when I was invisible even to myself." His words struck a deep chord within Emily, awakening memories of countless customers who had passed through the cafe over the years. Sad faces that left with smiles, lonely people who found comfort in a simple conversation. "I guess I always knew there was something different about me," she admitted, "but I never imagined it could be something so significant." William smiled, gently. "That's why I want to propose something to you, something that could not only help with your treatment but also benefit many others." Emily looked at him curiously. "What do you have in mind? How about we turn your old cafe into a center for support and therapy, a place where people like you, with this special gift, can come together, share experiences, and help those in need?" The idea hit Emily like a bolt of hope. Her old workplace transformed into a beacon of healing and understanding. "William, that's incredible, but how would we do it?" "Leave the details to me," he replied with a sparkle in his eye. "I have contacts who can help. Us assemble a multidisciplinary team, doctors, therapists, researchers. We could combine modern medicine with the ancestral practices Dr. Harrison mentioned." Emily felt a wave of emotion rush through her body. It was as if all the pieces of her life were finally falling into place. "And me? What would my role be in all of this?" "You, Emily, would be the heart of this project," William replied with conviction. "Your experience, your sensitivity, your gift, all of that would guide our approach." At that moment, Elizabeth joined them in the garden. Seeing Emily's emotional expression, she asked worriedly, "Is everything okay? Did something happen?" William quickly updated her on the idea for the wellness center. Elizabeth listened attentively, her eyes shining with growing enthusiasm. "This is wonderful," she exclaimed, "and I'm sure we can expand it even further. How about including a research program? We could collaborate with universities, study cases similar to Emily's around the world." The excitement was contagious. Emily felt as if she were on the brink of something transformative, not just for herself, but for many others who, like her, carried this unique gift. "There's so much to be done," Emily reflected, her mind racing with possibilities. "We'll need a larger space than the old cafe, medical equipment, a trained team." "Don't worry about that now," William reassured her. The important thing is that we have a goal, a direction. The rest we'll figure out step by step. Elizabeth, ever practical, already had her phone in hand. I'll call our architect. We can start planning the renovation of the space immediately. As the Carter couple got excited about the logistical details, Emily stepped away, walking over to a small fountain in the center of the garden. Looking at her reflection in the crystal-clear water, she saw not just herself, but all the women in her lineage who had come before her, women who, like her, carried this extraordinary gift. "Mother," she whispered to the reflection, "I hope you're proud. I'm going to use this gift the way you always wanted, to help, to heal, to make a difference." A gentle breeze blew, making the flowers around the fountain dance. Emily closed her eyes, feeling a peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. For the first time since discovering her condition, she no longer felt like a victim of a mysterious illness, but like the guardian of a powerful and meaningful legacy. When she returned to William and Elizabeth, who were still animatedly discussing plans for the center, Emily had a new sparkle in her eyes. She knew the road ahead would be challenging, but she was ready to face it. With the support of the Carters and the strength of her own gift, she was determined to transform not only her life, but the lives of countless others who, like her, carried the weight and blessing of this extraordinary sensitivity. The following. Months passed in a whirlwind of activity. Emily's old cafe, once a modest establishment on the corner of a busy street, was now at the center of an ambitious transformation. William had not only purchased the building, but also acquired the adjacent properties, creating a spacious and versatile area for what they had begun to call the Empathy Project. On a sunny Saturday morning, Emily found herself standing in front of the construction site, watching the comings and goings of workers and the constant sound of hammers and saws. Beside her, Elizabeth studied the blueprints with a critical eye. "The architect did an incredible job," Elizabeth commented, pointing to different areas of the project. "Look, we'll have individual therapy rooms here, a space for group sessions there, and even a therapeutic garden in the back." Emily nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension. It's amazing how everything is taking shape so quickly. "Quickly?" William joked, joining them. "You call 6 months of planning and 3 of construction fast?" The three laughed, but Emily knew he was right. Time had flown by, filled with meetings, research, and of course her own ongoing treatment. "How are you feeling?" William asked, his voice softening with genuine concern. Emily smiled, realizing that for the first time in a long while the answer was positive. "Better. Much better, actually. The alternative therapies Dr. Harrison suggested, combined with the medication, are working wonders." "And your gift?" Elizabeth asked hesitantly, still not entirely comfortable talking openly about Emily's special ability. "It's fascinating," Emily replied, her eyes shining with excitement. "The more I learn to control it, the stronger it seems to get. It's like I'm finally tuning into a frequency that's always been there, but I never knew how to access it properly." At that moment, a sleek car parked nearby. Out stepped a middle-aged woman with graying hair and a demeanor that exuded wisdom and experience. "Dr. Sophia," William greeted her warmly. "So glad you could make it." Emily looked curiously at the newcomer. William had mentioned that a specialist in traditional healing practices would be coming for a consultation, but she hadn't expected someone so imposing. "Emily," William made the introductions. "This is Dr. Sophia Reynolds. She's an anthropologist and has spent years studying healing practices in indigenous communities of the Amazon." Dr. Sophia extended her hand to Emily, and the moment their fingers touched, Emily felt a wave of energy course through her body. It was as if the woman before her radiated an aura of ancient knowledge. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Emily, Doctor," Sophia said, her voice soft yet full of authority. "William has told me about your special gift. I believe we have much to learn from each other." The next few hours were spent in an intense discussion about the Empathy Project. Dr. Sophia brought valuable insights on how to integrate traditional healing practices into the modern environment they were creating. The important thing, she explained as they walked through the construction site, is to create a space that respects both modern science and ancestral wisdom. A place where people like Emily can learn to channel their gift in a healthy and beneficial way. Elizabeth, ever practical, was already taking notes. We could have a dedicated area for traditional healing rituals, perhaps with a stone circle or something similar. Excellent idea, Dr. Sophia approved. And don't forget the importance of plants. Many herbs used in traditional healing practices have medicinal properties proven by modern science. As the group continued their lively discussion, Emily stepped away for a moment, walking over to what had once been the counter of her coffee shop. She touched the worn wood, remembering all the cups of coffee served, all the conversations shared. Everything okay? William's voice pulled her from her thoughts. Emily turned, smiling softly. Yes, just reminiscing. It's strange to see this place transforming into something so much greater than I ever imagined. William placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. You know, Emily, when you saved me that rainy night, you didn't just change my life. You planted a seed that's now blossoming into something extraordinary. His words deeply touched Emily. She looked around, seeing not just the construction site, but the potential for healing and transformation that this space represented. I think I finally understand the true purpose of my gift, she said, her voice choked with emotion. It's not just about feeling others' pain, but about using that sensitivity to guide them toward healing. At that moment, with the sun setting on the horizon and casting a golden glow over the construction site, Emily felt a profound certainty. The Empathy Project wasn't just a treatment center or a research facility. It was the beginning of a journey of discovery, healing and connection that had the potential to touch countless lives. As they walked back to join the others, Emily made a silent promise to herself. She would honor the legacy of all the women in her lineage who came before her, using her gift not just to heal, but to teach others to recognize and cultivate their own innate empathy. The Empathy Project was just beginning, but Emily knew it was the first step towards something truly transformative. As the Empathy Project took shape, new challenges arose almost daily. Emily found herself at the center of a whirlwind of activity, balancing her own treatment with the growing responsibilities of the project. On a particularly hectic afternoon, Emily was meeting with William, Elizabeth, and Dr. Sophia in the makeshift conference room at the construction site. The air was thick with tension. The costs are exceeding our initial estimates, William explained, running his hand through his hair in frustration. Integrating the most advanced medical equipment with areas dedicated to traditional practices is proving more complex than we imagined. Elizabeth, ever pragmatic, was quickly flipping through a stack of reports. On top of that, we're facing resistance from some more conservative sectors of the medical community. They question the scientific validity of combining modern medicine with ancestral practices. Emily felt a wave of anxiety wash over her. It was as if she could feel the weight of everyone's concerns in the room. Taking a deep breath, she focused on applying the techniques she had been learning to control her gift. Maybe, she began hesitantly, we're approaching this the wrong way. All eyes turned to her. What do you mean? Asked Dr. Sophia, leaning forward with interest. Emily stood up, walking over to the window that overlooked the construction site. We're trying to force the union of two worlds that, at first glance, seem incompatible. But what if instead we looked for the common ground? She turned to face the group. My gift, for example. It's not something that can be measured by machines, but its effects are real and tangible. And the ancestral practices Dr. Sophia has shown us. Many of them are rooted in principles that modern science is only beginning to understand. William nodded slowly, a spark of understanding in his eyes. You're suggesting we approach the project not as a forced fusion, but as a collaborative exploration. Exactly, Emily smiled, feeling more confident. Instead of trying to prove the validity of one method over the other, we could create a space where both can coexist and complement each other. Dr. Sophia clapped her hands, excited. Brilliant! That would not only reduce integration costs but also pave the way for broader acceptance in the scientific community. The atmosphere in the room shifted noticeably. What was once tension now transformed into an energy of possibilities. Elizabeth Carter was already scribbling down new ideas. We could reorganize the layout, have dedicated areas for conventional medicine, spaces for traditional practices, and integration zones where researchers and practitioners from both approaches can collaborate. As the group eagerly discussed the new possibilities, Emily Thompson felt a sudden dizziness. The voices around her seemed distant and her vision blurred for a moment. "Emily?" William Carter's concerned voice brought her back. "Are you okay?" She blinked, trying to focus. I think so. I just felt a little dizzy for a moment." Dr. Sophia Reynolds approached, observing her closely. "How long has it been since you've rested properly, dear?" Emily hesitated. With all the commotion of the project, she had neglected her own well-being. I'm not sure." "That ends now," Elizabeth declared firmly. "Emily, you are the heart of this project. We can't afford to see you fall ill again." William agreed. "Elizabeth is right. From now on, we'll set clear boundaries. You need time to rest and continue your own treatment." Emily wanted to protest, but she knew they were right. Her gift was a blessing, but it also required care and balance. "There's something else," Dr. Sophia said softly, her eyes fixed on Emily. "I believe what you experienced wasn't just exhaustion. Your gift is evolving, becoming stronger." A silence fell over the room. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. "What does that mean?" Dr. Sophia smiled gently. "It means we're only scratching the surface of what you're capable of, my dear, and that makes it even more crucial for you to learn to take care of yourself while caring for others." That night, lying in her bed at the Carter mansion, Emily reflected on the day's events. The empathy project was becoming bigger and more important than any of them had initially imagined, and her own role in it was expanding in ways she was only beginning to understand. Closing her eyes, Emily tried to tune into her gift as Dr. Sophia had taught her. To her surprise, she could feel, like faint threads of energy, the emotions of the people in the mansion and beyond. It was both terrifying and wondrous. "Mother," she whispered into the darkness, "I hope you're guiding me on this journey. There's so much to learn, so much to do." With that thought, Emily fell asleep, her dreams filled with images of healing, connection, and infinite possibilities. The empathy project was evolving, and with it, Emily's own understanding of her place in the world and the true potential of her extraordinary gift. Dawn found Emily sitting on the mansion's porch, a steaming cup of tea in her hands. The empathy project was progressing by leaps and bounds, but the revelations from the previous day about the evolution of her gift had left her unsettled. A gentle knock on the glass door pulled her from her thoughts. It was Elizabeth, dressed for her morning run. "Can I join you?" she asked kindly. Emily nodded, gesturing to the chair beside her. For a few minutes, they sat in silence, watching the sunrise. "You know," Elizabeth began, breaking the silence, "when William first told me about you, I'll admit I was skeptical. The idea of someone with a special gift seemed, well, hard to believe." Emily smiled softly. "Believe me, sometimes it's still hard for me to believe too." Elizabeth chuckled quietly. "But seeing you now, seeing how all of this has unfolded, it's incredible, Emily, you're incredible." The compliment warmed Emily's heart, but it also brought up a doubt that had been haunting her. "Elizabeth, do you think I'm doing the right thing? What if this whole project is just an elaborate way for me to run away from my own problems?" Elizabeth turned to face her, her expression serious. "Emily, what you're doing isn't running away. It's facing things head-on. You're using something that could be seen as a curse to help others. That takes courage." Elizabeth's words touched Emily deeply. Before she could respond, however, they were interrupted by William, who hurried onto the balcony. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, his tone urgent, "but I just got a call from Dr. Sophia. She's found something she thinks you need to see, Emily." Hours later, Emily found herself in Dr. Sophia's makeshift office at the Empathy Project construction site. The anthropologist was hunched over a table cluttered with ancient documents and photographs. "Ah, glad you're here," Dr. Sophia exclaimed as she saw Emily. "I have something fascinating to show you." She handed over a sepia-toned photograph, worn by time. In it, a group of indigenous women was gathered around a central figure, a woman of mixed features who looked strangely familiar to Emily. "This photo was taken nearly a century ago," Dr. Sophia explained. "The woman in the center is known in local legends as the healer with eyes that see beyond. And look at this." She pointed to a detail in the photo, a necklace the woman was wearing with a peculiar pendant. Emily gasped, her hand instinctively going to her own neck. There, hidden beneath her blouse, was an identical necklace, an heirloom from her grandmother. How is this possible?" Emily stammered, her fingers trembling as they touched the pendant. Dr. Sophia smiled, her eyes shining with excitement. "Emily, I believe we've just discovered a direct connection between you and a lineage of healers that goes back centuries. Your gift isn't something isolated or new. It's part of an ancient and powerful tradition." Emily's mind was spinning. Memories of her childhood surfaced, her grandmother telling stories about special women in their family, the necklace being passed down from generation to generation. "There's more," Dr. Sophia Reynolds continued, picking up an old journal. "I found records of specific practices and rituals used by these healers to amplify and control their gifts. Techniques that could be crucial for you now that your power is evolving." Emily Thompson took the journal with reverence, its yellowed pages filled with symbols and instructions, in a language she didn't understand but somehow felt familiar. "This changes everything," she murmured, feeling the weight of history in her hands. At that moment, William Carter and Elizabeth Carter entered the room, bringing Dr. Harrison with them. Seeing Emily's expression, they stopped, sensing the charged atmosphere. "What happened?" William asked, concerned. Emily looked at them, her eyes shining with a mix of fear and determination. "We've just discovered that the Empathy Project is much bigger than we imagined. We're not just creating something new. We're reviving an ancient and powerful legacy." Dr. Harrison stepped forward, examining the documents with professional interest. "This is extraordinary. We could be on the brink of a revolution in understanding empathy and emotional healing. But it's also terrifying," Emily admitted. "What if I'm not up to this legacy?" Elizabeth placed a comforting hand on Emily's shoulder. "You're not alone in this journey. We're all here to support you." William nodded in agreement. The Empathy Project has always been about uniting the old and the new, tradition and science. Now we have a unique opportunity to do that in a way no one ever imagined. Emily looked at the group gathered around her, scientists, entrepreneurs, healers, all united by a common purpose. She felt a wave of gratitude and determination. "Then," she said, her voice gaining strength, "let's do this right. Let's honor this legacy and use this knowledge to help as many people as possible." As the group began discussing next steps, Emily couldn't help but feel they were on the verge of something truly transformative. The Empathy Project wasn't just a healing center. It was the rebirth of an ancient tradition, a bridge between worlds, and a promise of hope for the future. With her grandmother's necklace weighing heavily against her chest, Emily knew her journey was just beginning. The challenges ahead would be immense, but for the first time she felt truly prepared to face them. The weeks following the discovery of Emily's ancestral legacy were intense and transformative. The Empathy Project, already ambitious, gained a new dimension with the incorporation of the ancient knowledge found in the journal. On a sunny morning, Emily found herself in the center of what was once her cafe, now transformed into a sacred, circular space within the Empathy Project complex. The wooden floor had been replaced with stones arranged in intricate patterns, replicating designs found in her ancestors' journal. Dr. Sophia Reynolds was by her side, guiding her through another training session. "Breathe deeply, Emily. Feel the energy flowing through you, connecting with the earth beneath your feet." Emily closed her eyes, focusing on the sensation of the pendant around her neck. Gradually, she began to feel a subtle vibration, as if the air around her was charged with electricity. "Now," Dr. Sophia's voice sounded distant, "extend your awareness. Try to sense the energies beyond this room." To Emily's surprise, she began to feel distinct presences. It was as if she could see through the walls. She identified William in his office, his energy vibrant but laden with worry. "Elizabeth, was in the therapeutic garden, her aura calm and comforting. "Incredible," Emily murmured, slowly opening her eyes. Dr. Sophia smiled, proud. "Your progress is remarkable, Emily. In just a few weeks, you're already accessing levels of perception that your ancestors took years to master." Before Emily could respond, they were interrupted by a knock at the door. It was Dr. Harrison, looking agitated. "Sorry to intrude," he said, entering the room, "but we have a delicate situation." Emily immediately felt the tension emanating from him. What happened? "A group of researchers from a renowned university is questioning the scientific validity of our work," he explained. "They're threatening to publish an article discrediting the Empathy Project, calling it dangerous pseudoscience." Emily's heart sank. They knew they would face resistance, but they didn't expect such a direct attack so soon. "This could jeopardize all our funding and support," Dr. Harrison continued. "We need to act quickly." Dr. Sophia furrowed her brow. "Perhaps it's time to consider a public demonstration of Emily's work." "No," Emily exclaimed, feeling a wave of panic. "I'm not ready for that. What if I fail? The entire project would be at risk." At that moment, William and Elizabeth entered the room, having been informed of the situation. "Emily," William began gently, "I understand your fear, but maybe this is exactly what we need. Concrete proof of your gift, something even the most hardened skeptics can't deny." Elizabeth nodded, in agreement. "Besides, think of all the people we could help if the project gains credibility and support." Emily closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision on her shoulders. Instinctively, her hand went to the pendant. The moment she touched it, it was as if a wave of calm enveloped her. Opening her eyes, she faced the gathered group. "You're right, we can't hide. If we truly want to make a difference, we need to face this head-on." Dr. Harrison smiled, relieved. "Great, I'll organize a presentation for the scientific community. We can invite journalists, researchers, even some of our most vocal critics. And I," Dr. Sophia added, "will help Emily prepare. We'll review some of the most powerful techniques from the diary." In the days that followed, the Empathy Project became a whirlwind of activity. As the team prepared for the grand event, Emily spent hours in intensive training with Dr. Sophia Reynolds. On the eve of the presentation, exhausted after yet another long session, Emily retreated to the therapeutic garden. Sitting on a stone bench, she watched the sunset, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. "I thought I might find you here." Elizabeth's soft voice surprised her. Emily smiled weakly as the other woman sat beside her. "I'm so nervous." "Elizabeth, what if I can't do it? What if all of this is just coincidence?" Elizabeth took Emily's hands in hers. "Look at me, Emily. Since the day you came into our lives, I've seen things that defy any rational explanation. Your gift is real, and tomorrow the whole world will see it." Elizabeth's words brought tears to Emily's eyes. "Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without your support." "We're a family now," Elizabeth replied, hugging her, "and families face challenges together." That night, lying in bed, Emily reflected on her journey. From a simple waitress to the heir of an ancestral legacy of healing, her life had transformed in ways she could never have imagined. Touching the pendant, she whispered a silent prayer to her ancestors. "Please, give me strength. Help me honor our legacy." With that thought, she fell asleep, dreaming of women from past eras, all united by an extraordinary gift and a common purpose to heal, connect, and transform lives. Tomorrow would bring challenges, but Emily knew she wouldn't face them alone. With the support of her new family and the strength of generations of healers guiding her, she was ready to show the world the true power of empathy. The main auditorium of the Empathy Project was packed. Renowned scientists, eager journalists, and determined skeptics filled every available seat. At the center of the stage, a solitary chair awaited the day's protagonist. Backstage, Emily took deep breaths, trying to calm her nerves. William, Elizabeth, Dr. Harrison, and Dr. Sophia Reynolds were around her, offering words of encouragement. "Remember," Dr. Sophia said gently, "you carry the legacy of generations. Trust in your gift." William placed a comforting hand on Emily's shoulder. "No matter what happens out there, we're with you." With a final group hug, Emily walked onto the stage. The murmur of the audience quieted as she took her place in the central chair. Under the bright lights, she could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes fixed on her. Dr. Harrison approached the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this extraordinary demonstration. Today, we will witness something that challenges our current understanding of the human mind and empathy." He paused, his eyes scanning the audience. "I ask that you keep an open mind. What you see today may challenge your beliefs, but I ask that you observe with the eyes of scientists, attentive, curious, and willing to consider new possibilities." With a gesture, he invited volunteers from the audience. 5 people, all strangers to Emily, stepped onto the stage and sat in chairs arranged in a semicircle around her. Emily closed her eyes, gently touching the pendant around her neck. She took a deep breath, feeling the energy flow through her, just as she had practiced with Dr. Sophia. When she opened her eyes again, her voice was calm and clear. "I will describe what I sense from each of you. Please confirm if I am correct." She turned to the first volunteer, a middle-aged man with a skeptical expression. "You are worried about your daughter. She is pregnant, but there are complications. You fear for the baby and for her." The man paled, his eyes widening in shock. How could you know that?" Emily continued, turning to a young woman. "You have just received a promotion at work, but you are unsure if you deserve it. There is an important project in your hands, and you fear failing." The woman nodded slowly, tears forming in her eyes. One by one, Emily accurately described the deepest fears, the most intense joys, and the most closely guarded secrets of each volunteer. The audience watched in stunned silence, many with expressions of disbelief and others with tears in their eyes. When she finished with the last volunteer, Emily stood up, her voice gaining strength. "What I demonstrated here today is not a trick or a supernatural ability. It is the result of generations of women who have dedicated their lives to understanding and developing our innate capacity for empathy." She walked to the front of the stage, facing the audience directly. "The Empathy Project is not about magic or pseudoscience. It is about unlocking the untapped potential of the human mind, about reconnecting with an ancestral wisdom that has been forgotten in our pursuit of technological progress." The silence in the auditorium was palpable. Emily could feel a mix of emotions emanating from the audience: shock, admiration, skepticism, and above all, curiosity. "We are only scratching the surface of what is possible," she continued. "Imagine a world where doctors can truly feel the pain of their patients, where leaders can genuinely understand the needs of their people, where each of us can deeply connect with those around us." At that moment, something extraordinary happened. Emily felt a wave of energy surge through her body, more intense than anything she had ever experienced. Without thinking, she extended her hands, and a soft light began to emanate from them. Collective gasps echoed through the auditorium. The light expanded, enveloping the entire stage and then gradually the entire audience. For a brief moment, every person in the room felt a deep connection with everyone around them, experiencing an empathy so intense that many began to cry. When the light faded, Emily staggered, slightly exhausted. William and Elizabeth rushed to support her, while the audience erupted in thunderous applause. Dr. Harrison approached the microphone, his voice trembling with emotion. "Ladies and gentlemen, what we witnessed today goes beyond any current scientific explanation, but it is real, it is measurable, and it has the potential to revolutionize our understanding of the human mind and interpersonal relationships." In the days that followed, the Empathy Project became the center of global attention. Newspapers, scientific journals, and television programs talked of nothing else. Heated debates arose in universities and research institutions around the world. For Emily, however, the most significant moment came the night after the demonstration. Alone in her room, she held the pendant and whispered, "Thank you, Grandma. Thank you to all of you who came before me. I promise to honor our legacy and use this gift for the good of humanity." In the months following Emily's public demonstration, the Empathy Project became a global phenomenon. What had started as a Small initiative in an old coffee shop was now the epicenter of a revolution in understanding the human mind and interpersonal relationships. Emily woke up early on a crisp autumn morning, the cool air drifting through the window of her room in the Carter mansion. As she reached for her phone, she was greeted by a flood of notifications. More interview requests, invitations to international conferences and emails from people around the world, sharing their own experiences with heightened empathy. Heading downstairs for breakfast, she found William and Elizabeth already at the kitchen table, both engrossed in tablets and papers. "Good morning," Emily greeted them, pouring herself a cup of tea. William looked up, a tired but satisfied smile on his face. "Emily, you won't believe it. Harvard University wants to establish an entire department dedicated to the study of what they're calling advanced empathy," Elizabeth added, pushing a stack of letters toward Emily. "And these are just a few of the hundreds of requests we've received from people wanting to join the Empathy Project's training programs." Emily picked up one of the letters, reading it carefully. It was from a nurse in Australia, describing how she had always felt an unusual connection with her patients, and how Emily's work had finally given a name and validation to what she had experienced. "It's incredible," Emily murmured. "How so many people around the world were waiting for this without even knowing it." At that moment, Dr. Sophia entered the kitchen, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Oh, good, you're all here. I have fascinating news." She placed a laptop on the table, showing images of archaeological excavations. "Remember those inscriptions we found in the journal? Well, a team of archaeologists in South America has discovered ruins with identical symbols. We believe it might be the origin site of the healer lineage you descend from, Emily." The news electrified the group. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine, as if she were about to uncover another crucial piece of her past and her destiny. "This is wow," she managed to say, her mind spinning with the implications. Dr. Harrison, who had just arrived, joined the conversation. "And that's not all. Based on the data we've collected during your sessions, Emily, we've developed a preliminary protocol to identify and train others with high empathic potential." The group spent the next few hours eagerly discussing the new developments and planning their next steps. The Empathy Project was growing faster, and in directions none of them could have predicted. However, with growth came new challenges. That afternoon, during a video conference with world leaders and UN representatives, Emily faced tough questions. "Miss Thompson," a diplomat asked, his voice tense even through the screen, "how can we ensure that this ability won't be used unethically, in espionage, manipulation, or mind control?" The question hung heavily in the air. Emily felt the weight of everyone's eyes on her, both in the room and through the screens. Taking a deep breath, she touched her pendant, seeking strength and clarity. "I understand your concerns," she began, her voice steady. "What we've discovered is powerful, and like any significant advancement, it carries responsibilities. But the core of advanced empathy is connection, mutual understanding. It's not about control or manipulation, but about breaking down barriers between people." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Imagine a world where leaders could truly feel the needs of their people, where diplomats could deeply understand each other's perspectives. Wouldn't we be closer to peace and global cooperation?" Her words seemed to touch something deep within the participants. The tension in the room visibly eased, replaced by an atmosphere of reflection and possibility. By the end of the day, exhausted but satisfied, Emily retreated to the Empathy Project's therapeutic garden. Sitting on a stone bench, she watched the sunset, reflecting on how far they had come and how much still lay ahead. Elizabeth joined her, offering a warm cup of tea. "A penny for your thoughts," Emily smiled, accepting the drink. "I'm thinking about how everything has changed so quickly. Sometimes I wonder if I'm up to all of this." Elizabeth placed an arm around Emily's shoulders. "You're more than up to it. You're exactly what the world needs right now, someone who can remind us of our shared humanity." The two fell silent for a moment, watching the last colors of twilight fade on the horizon. "You know," Emily finally said, "I think we're just at the beginning of something much bigger than any of us." Elizabeth nodded, a gentle smile on her lips. "And we'll be by your side every step of the way." As the first stars began to dot the night sky, Emily felt a deep sense of purpose and connection. The Empathy Project wasn't just about her or her gift. It was about reconnecting humanity with a long-forgotten ancestral wisdom. It was about healing not just individuals, but the very fabric of society. With that thought, she allowed herself a moment of pure hope. The path ahead would be challenging, but also full of incredible possibilities, and she was ready to face it one heart at a time. Winter arrived, bringing not only the cold, but also a series of new developments for the Empathy Project. The old cafe, now completely transformed, could barely contain the growing demand for its services and research. On a particularly busy morning, Emily found herself in a meeting with William, Elizabeth, Dr. Harrison, and Dr. Sophia in the main conference room. "The preliminary results are impressive," Dr. Harrison explained, projecting graphs onto the screen. "Patients with chronic depression are showing significant improvement after just a few sessions of advanced empathic therapy." Dr. Sophia added, flipping through a report. "And that's not all. We're seeing potential applications in areas we hadn't even considered initially. Conflict resolution, diplomatic negotiations, even education." William nodded thoughtfully. "International interest is growing exponentially. We've received requests from governments and research institutions on every continent to establish satellite centers for the Empathy Project." Emily felt a mix of pride and apprehension. "It's amazing to see how much it's grown, but are we expanding too quickly? There's still so much we don't fully understand about this gift." Elizabeth placed a comforting hand on Emily's arm. "Your concern is valid. That's why we need to discuss our next big decision." William cleared his throat, exchanging a glance with Elizabeth before continuing. "Emily, we believe the time has come to significantly expand the Empathy Project. We're considering building an entire campus dedicated to research and training in advanced empathy." Emily's heart raced. The idea was thrilling, but also daunting. An entire campus? That's huge. Dr. Harrison leaned forward, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. "Think of the possibilities, Emily. We could bring together the world's top experts, train the next generation of empaths, conduct groundbreaking research, and most importantly," Dr. Sophia added softly, "we could create a sanctuary for people like you, Emily, a place where those with empathic gifts can learn, grow, and heal." Emily closed her eyes for a moment, allowing the magnitude of the proposal to sink in. When she opened them again, there was a new determination in her gaze. "All right, let's do this. But we need to make sure we never lose sight of our original mission, to help people one at a time." The following months were a whirlwind of activity. Construction of the new Empathy Project campus began on the outskirts of the city, an ambitious complex that blended modern architecture with elements inspired by ancient healing traditions. Emily divided her time between overseeing the project, continuing her own research and training, and traveling the world to share the advancements of the Empathy Project. It was exhausting but deeply rewarding. However, with growing visibility came new challenges. One afternoon, while Emily was conducting a training session with a group of new empaths, she was interrupted by William, who looked concerned. "Emily, we need to talk," he said, guiding her to a quiet corner. "We just received information about a group calling themselves the Guardians of Reason. They're spreading misinformation about the Empathy Project, claiming we're practicing mass brainwashing." Emily felt a knot in her stomach. They had always known they would face skepticism and opposition, but this seemed different. "How serious is this?" "Very serious," William replied, running his hand through his hair in frustration. "They're gaining traction on social media and have even secured support from some conservative politicians." That evening, in an emergency meeting, the team discussed strategies to deal with the growing wave of negativity. "We need to be proactive," Elizabeth argued. "Maybe it's time to launch a large-scale awareness campaign," Dr. Harrison agreed. "And we should ramp up our scientific publications. The more concrete data we have, the harder it will be for them to discredit us." Emily listened to all the suggestions, but felt something was missing. Touching her pendant, she closed her eyes for a moment, seeking guidance. When she opened them, There was a new clarity in her gaze. All of this is important, but I think we're forgetting something fundamental. These guardians of reason, but they're afraid of the unknown, afraid of change. She stood up, walking to the center of the room. What if, instead of just defending ourselves, we reached out to them, invited their leaders to visit the Empathy Project, to experience for themselves what we do here? The proposal was met with stunned silence. It's risky, William pondered. What if they use it against us? It's a risk we need to take, Emily replied firmly. If we truly believe in the power of empathy, we need to practice it even with those who oppose us. Slowly, the group began to nod in agreement. It was a bold approach, but one that aligned with everything the Empathy Project stood for. In the weeks that followed, Emily worked tirelessly to implement her plan. Letters were sent, invitations extended, and slowly, some of the most vocal critics began to respond. The Empathy Project was about to face its greatest challenge yet. But Emily knew this was also a pivotal moment. It was an opportunity to show the world that the true strength of empathy lay not in convincing or converting, but in understanding and connecting, even in the face of the greatest differences. As she prepared to welcome the first group of critics, Emily felt a mix of nervousness and determination. The future of the Empathy Project, and perhaps humanity's very understanding of connection and compassion, was at stake. But she was ready for the challenge, confident in the transformative power of the gift she had inherited and the strength of the community she had built around her. The day dawned clear and cold, a harbinger of the crucial meeting that was about to take place. Emily woke up early, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. Today, she and the Empathy Project team would receive the leaders of the Guardians of Reason, their most staunch opponents. As she prepared, Emily reflected on how far they had come and how much was at stake. The new Empathy Project campus, still under construction, was a testament to their growth and impact. But all of this could be threatened if they failed to overcome the skepticism and hostility they faced. In the main meeting room, William, Elizabeth, Dr. Harrison, and Dr. Sophia Reynolds were already gathered, reviewing the strategy for the day. "Remember," Emily said to the group, "our goal is not to convince them or prove that we are right. It is to create a space for open dialogue and mutual understanding." William nodded, though the tension in his shoulders was visible. "I understand, but we can't be naive. They could use anything we say against us." "That's why transparency will be our best defense," Elizabeth added. "We'll show them everything, answer all their questions honestly." The sound of arriving cars interrupted the conversation. Through the window, they saw a convoy of vehicles entering the complex. The moment had arrived. Emily took a deep breath, touching her pendant for strength and clarity. "Let's go. It's time to practice what we preach." The group that entered. The room was diverse and visibly tense. There were skeptical scientists, investigative journalists, and even a politician known for his conservative stances. Leading them was Dr. Evelyn Harper, a renowned neuroscientist and the most prominent voice against the Empathy Project. "Welcome to the Empathy Project," Emily greeted them warmly. "We sincerely thank you for accepting our invitation." Dr. Harper stepped forward, her piercing eyes fixed on Emily. "Miss Thompson, I'll be direct. We are here because we believe what you are doing is potentially dangerous. Large-scale emotional manipulation. That's what we see." Emily maintained her calm and open posture. "I understand your concerns, Dr. Harper. That's why we are happy to open our doors to you. We would like to start by showing you our facilities and answering all your questions." The next few hours were intense. The group toured every corner of the Empathy Project, from the research labs to the therapy rooms. Tough questions were asked, and Emily and her team made every effort to respond, with complete honesty and transparency. The crucial moment came when they reached the training center, where new empaths were learning to develop and control their abilities. "This is nothing more than mass induction," one of the journalists commented skeptically. It was then that Emily made a bold decision. "Dr. Harper," she said, turning to the neuroscientist, "I would like to invite you to a direct experience. With your permission, I would like to establish an empathic connection with you." A tense silence fell over the group. Dr. Reeves visibly hesitated, but her scientific curiosity seemed to outweigh her caution. "Very well, Miss Thompson. But I warn you, I will be monitoring every sensation carefully." Emily nodded, extending her hands. Dr. Harper held them, her gaze challenging. Closing her eyes, Emily focused, accessing her gift in the way she had practiced countless times. Slowly, a soft light began to emanate from her clasped hands. Dr. Harper gasped, her eyes widening. For a few moments, the two women stood motionless, connected by something invisible yet almost palpable to everyone present. When they finally separated, there were tears in Dr. Harper's eyes. "That was extraordinary," she whispered. "I felt everything. Your sincerity, your passion for the project, even your fears and doubts." The rest of the group watched in stunned silence. Emily smiled gently. "What we experienced wasn't manipulation, Dr. Harper. It was pure connection, the essence of what it means to be human." The following hours were marked by intense discussions, but the tone had shifted dramatically. Skepticism gave way to curiosity, and even the harshest critics began asking genuinely interested questions. By the end of the day, as the group of visitors prepared to leave, Dr. Harper approached Emily. "Miss Thompson," she began, her voice heavy with emotion, "I must admit that I came here today expecting to find charlatanism and manipulation. Instead, I found something that challenges my current understanding of science, yet I cannot deny it." She paused, carefully considering her next words. "I believe it's time for a closer collaboration between our institutions. There is much we need to understand about what you're doing here." Emily felt a wave of relief and gratitude. "We would be honored, Dr. Harper. Together, we can explore this new field in a way that benefits all of humanity." As the cars departed, Emily joined her team, all exhausted but deeply satisfied. "You did it," William said, embracing her. "You didn't just convince them, you transformed them." Emily smiled, feeling the weight of the past months dissipate. "It wasn't me, it was the power of true empathy. All I did was open the door." That night, gazing at the stars from the therapeutic garden, Emily reflected on the day. They had faced their greatest challenge yet and emerged stronger. The empathy project was no longer just a dream or a risky experiment. It was a growing reality with the potential to change the world. With a heart full of hope and renewed purpose, Emily knew they were only at the beginning of an extraordinary journey, a journey that promised to reconnect humanity with its innate capacity for deep understanding and compassion. The months following the meeting with the Guardians of Reason brought a dramatic shift in the public perception of the Empathy Project. What was once viewed with skepticism and fear was now an object of fascination and hope across the globe. On a sunny spring morning, Emily was in her new office at the recently inaugurated campus of the Empathy Project. The glass walls offered a panoramic view of the lush gardens and modern buildings that now made up the complex. It was a constant reminder of how far they had come. William entered, carrying a stack of documents. "Good morning, Emily. Ready for another busy day?" Emily smiled, accepting the cup of tea he offered. "Always, what's on the agenda today?" "Well, to start, the UN wants to discuss implementing a pilot conflict resolution program based on our advanced empathy techniques," William explained, consulting his schedule. "And later we have a video conference with the research team in India. It seems they've made an interesting discovery about the manifestation of the empathic gift across different cultures." Emily nodded, feeling a mix of pride and responsibility. The Empathy Project had truly gone global, with research and training centers established on every continent. "Oh, and don't forget," William added with a smile, "this afternoon we have the graduation ceremony for the first class of certified empathic therapists." Emily's heart swelled with emotion. This first class represented the realization of a dream. People from all over the world, trained to use the gift of advanced empathy to heal and connect. The morning passed in a whirlwind of activity. The meeting with the UN was particularly intense, with diplomats from conflicting countries expressing both hope and skepticism about the potential of advanced empathy in resolving historical disputes. "We understand it's not a magic solution," Emily explained patiently, But imagine the impact of having leaders who can truly feel each other's perspectives. It's a crucial first step toward mutual understanding. After the meeting, Elizabeth joined Emily for a quick lunch in the campus cafeteria. "How are you feeling with all of this?" she asked, noticing the tiredness in Emily's eyes. Emily sighed, playing with her salad. "It's incredible to see the impact we're having, but sometimes I wonder if we're losing something important in the midst of all this expansion." Elizabeth placed a comforting hand on Emily's. "What do you mean?" "When it all began, it was about individual connections, about healing one person at a time," Emily explained. "Now we're dealing with governments, international organizations. I fear we might lose the essence of what makes the gift of empathy so special." Before Elizabeth could respond, they were interrupted by Dr. Harrison, who approached urgently. "Emily, Elizabeth, you need to see this." He guided them to a nearby lab where a team of researchers was gathered around a monitor. On the screen, MRI images pulsed with vibrant colors. "What are we looking at?" Emily asked, intrigued. Dr. Sophia, who led the research team, turned with eyes shining with excitement. "This, my dear, is the first concrete evidence of the neurological basis of the empathic gift. We've mapped the areas of the brain that activate during a deep empathic connection." The revelation was monumental. For the first time, they had scientific proof of what Emily and others like her could do. "This changes everything," Dr. Harrison said, his voice trembling with emotion. "With this, we can finally begin to understand how to develop and enhance these abilities on a larger scale." Emily felt a wave of conflicting emotions. On one hand, it was an incredible validation of everything they had fought for. On the other, it brought with it new ethical dilemmas and responsibilities. That afternoon, during the graduation ceremony, Emily observed the smiling faces of the new empathic therapists. They were people of all ages, ethnicities, and backgrounds united by a common purpose. When it was her turn to speak, Emily felt the weight of her words. "You are leaving here not just with a certificate, but with a sacred responsibility. The gift you have learned to cultivate is powerful, capable of healing deep wounds and building bridges where there were once chasms. Use it wisely with compassion, and always remember, every connection, every healing, begins with a single open heart." That night, alone in her room, Emily reflected on the hectic day. The empathy project had grown beyond her wildest dreams, but with that growth came new challenges and responsibilities. Touching the pendant around her neck, she thought of her ancestors, of all the women who had carried this gift through the generations. "Guide me," she whispered into the silence of the night. "Help me lead this movement with wisdom and grace." As she drifted off to sleep, Emily knew they were on the brink of a new era. An era where empathy was not just a virtue, but a powerful force capable of shaping the future of humanity. And she was determined to ensure that this power was used for the greater good, one heart at a time. The sun had barely risen when Emily was awakened by an urgent knock at her door. Groggy, she opened it to find William, his face tense with worry. "Emily, we need you immediately. There's been an incident." Minutes later, still adjusting her clothes, Emily entered the Empathy Project's crisis room. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Elizabeth Carter, Dr. Harrison, and Dr. Sophia Reynolds were already there, gathered around a large screen. "What happened?" Emily asked, feeling the palpable anxiety in the air. Dr. Harrison turned, his face pale. "We've received reports from one of our satellite centers in Europe. It seems one of our certified empathic therapists used their abilities to manipulate people." Emily's heart sank. It was the scenario they had feared most, something that could discredit all the work they had done. "How bad is it?" she managed to ask. Elizabeth sighed heavily. "He was working with high-level executives. Apparently he used his empathic abilities to influence corporate decisions, manipulate the stock market. It's an ethical and legal mess." Emily closed her eyes, feeling the weight of responsibility. They had been so focused on expanding and validating the Empathy Project that they might have overlooked the potential risks. "We're already in contact with local authorities," William informed her, "but the damage to our reputation could be immense. The press is already having a field day with this." Dr. Sophia, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "This raises serious questions about our selection and training protocols. Perhaps we're moving too fast." Her words echoed Emily's own fears. She remembered her conversation with Elizabeth days ago about the fear of losing the essence of the empathic gift amid rapid expansion. "We need to act quickly," Emily said, her voice gaining strength. "First, total transparency. We will issue a statement taking responsibility and detailing the measures we will take. Second, a complete review of all our protocols and procedures." William nodded, already typing on his tablet. "What about the other centers? Should we temporarily suspend operations?" Emily hesitated. The idea of halting the vital work they were doing around the world was painful, but the integrity of the project was paramount. "Yes," she finally decided. "We will pause all operations except those essential for the immediate well-being of patients. We will use this time for a full audit." The following hours were a whirlwind of activity. Statements were drafted, video conferences held with leaders of centers worldwide, and a crisis team was assembled to handle the press. By mid-afternoon, exhausted, Emily retreated to the therapeutic garden. Sitting on her favorite bench, she held the pendant, seeking guidance and strength. "Emily?" Dr. Sophia's gentle voice pulled her from her thoughts. "May I join you?" Emily nodded, grateful for the company. For a few moments they sat in silence, watching the flowers sway gently in the breeze. "You know," Dr. Sophia began, "when I studied ancient healing traditions, one thing became clear. Power always comes with a price. Our ancestors understood this. They had rituals, safeguards, to ensure the gift was used wisely." Emily looked at her, intrigued. "What are you suggesting?" "Perhaps," Dr. Sophia continued, "we need to return to our roots, not just train skills, but cultivate a deep ethic, an understanding of the sacredness of this gift." Her words resonated deeply with Emily. It was as if a missing piece of the puzzle had finally fallen into place. "You're right," Emily said, feeling a new clarity. "Doubt us. We've been so focused on expanding and proving the scientific validity of the gift that perhaps we've neglected its most crucial aspect, the responsibility that comes with it." That evening, at a global press conference, Emily faced a room full of eager journalists and impatient cameras. With William and Elizabeth by her side, she took a deep breath before beginning. "Good evening. I am here to address the recent events that have raised serious questions about the Empathy Project." She spoke with honesty and transparency, not shying away from responsibility. She detailed the measures they were taking and, more importantly, announced a fundamental shift in the project's approach. Starting today, the Empathy Project will undergo a transformation. In addition to technical training, we will implement a rigorous program on ethics and responsibility. Every person gifted with this extraordinary ability must understand the weight and sacredness of what they carry. The questions that followed were tough, but Emily faced them with grace and candor. When she finally left the stage, she felt exhausted, but strangely rejuvenated. William hugged her, tears in his eyes. "You were amazing up there. I think you just saved the project." Emily smiled wearily. "I didn't save anything alone. We're just beginning the real work now." As she walked back to her quarters, Emily reflected on the events of the day. The crisis had been painful, but also enlightening. She now understood that the true challenge was not just to expand the reach of the empathic gift, but to ensure it was used with wisdom and compassion. The Empathy Project was entering a new phase, one that would require not only science and skill, but also deep ethical and spiritual reflection. And Emily knew that to lead this new chapter, she herself would have to delve deeper into her own gift and the ancestral legacy she carried. In the weeks following the crisis, the Empathy Project underwent a profound transformation. Feeling the need to reconnect with the origins of her gift, Emily made a bold decision. She would travel to South America, to the ancestral ruins Dr. Sophia Reynolds had discovered months earlier. "Are you sure about this?" William asked, concern evident in his voice as he helped Emily pack. "The project needs you here." Emily smiled softly, touching the pendant around her neck. The project needs direction, William. And for that, I need to better understand where this gift comes from and how it was originally used. Elizabeth, standing in the doorway of the room, nodded in understanding. Sometimes, to move forward, we need to go back to the beginning. The next morning, Emily boarded a plane bound for Peru, accompanied only by Dr. Sophia Reynolds. The journey was long and arduous, taking them through winding roads and remote trails in the Andean mountains. Finally, after days of travel, they arrived at an isolated valley surrounded by snow-capped peaks. In the center, partially hidden by vegetation, were the ruins Dr. Sophia had mentioned. "It's incredible," Emily whispered, feeling an immediate connection to the place. The air seemed to vibrate with an ancient and powerful energy. As they explored the ruins, Dr. Sophia explained her discoveries. "These symbols," she said, pointing to inscriptions on the walls, "are almost identical to those found in your grandmother's journal. This place was a training and healing center for women with the empathic gift." Emily gently ran her hand over the inscriptions, feeling as though she could hear the echoes of the women who had walked there centuries before. How did they train? How did they use the gift? Dr. Sophia guided her to a central chamber where a circle of stones was intricately arranged. "We believe this was the site of the main rituals. The healers would gather here to amplify their powers and perform collective healings." In the days that followed, Emily and Dr. Sophia immersed themselves in the secrets of the ruins. They worked with local archaeologists, deciphered ancient inscriptions, and, most importantly, Emily began practicing the techniques they uncovered. One night, sitting alone in the stone circle under the starry sky, Emily closed her eyes and began to meditate. Following the instructions of an ancient ritual they had deciphered, suddenly she felt a shift in the air around her. Opening her eyes, she was astonished to see ethereal figures of women surrounding her, each emanating a soft light. "Do not be afraid, daughter," a gentle voice echoed in her mind. "We are your ancestors, the guardians of the gift you carry." Emily felt tears stream down her face. I have so many questions." The nearest figure, a wise-looking woman with kind eyes, smiled. "The gift you carry is a blessing and a responsibility. It is not just about feeling the emotions of others, but guiding them toward healing and balance." Another figure spoke. "Always remember, the true power of empathy lies not in changing others, but in creating a space for them to change themselves." The ancestors shared ancient wisdom, taught long-forgotten techniques, and, most importantly, helped Emily understand the true purpose of her gift. When the vision ended, Emily felt transformed. She now understood that the Empathy Project needed to be more than just a research center or a training school. It needed to be a beacon of healing and transformation, rooted in ancient wisdom but focused on the future. Weeks later, when Emily returned to the Empathy Project campus, everyone noticed the change in her. There was a new serenity in her eyes, a certainty in her movements. In a meeting with the core team, Emily shared her renewed vision. "We need to completely restructure our approach," she explained. "Empathic training won't just be about developing skills, but about cultivating deep wisdom and compassion." She outlined a new curriculum, which included not only advanced empathic techniques, but also ethical studies, mindfulness practices, and connection with nature. "And most importantly," Emily concluded, "every person who goes through our training will take a solemn oath, committing to use the gift only for the greater good." In the months that followed, the Empathy Project underwent a renaissance. The SAR facilities were redesigned to incorporate elements inspired by ancient ruins. New selection protocols were implemented, focusing not only on empathic ability, but also on integrity and emotional maturity. The incident that had nearly destroyed the project became a turning point. The press, once skeptical, now praised the Empathy Project's transparency and ethical commitment. One evening, months after her return, Emily was in the therapeutic garden reflecting on the incredible journey she had taken. William joined her, a warm smile on his face. "You know," he said softly, "when you walked into that coffee shop on that rainy night years ago, I could never have imagined where it would lead us. Emily smiled, touching her pendant. "The journey is far from over, William. In fact, I feel like we're just beginning." As the sun set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, Emily felt a deep sense of gratitude. The Empathy Project had faced challenges, evolved, and grown stronger. And with the wisdom of her ancestors guiding the way, she knew they were prepared to face any obstacle the future might bring. The gift of empathy, once a mystery and a burden, now shone as a beacon of hope for a world in search of connection and healing. And Emily was ready to lead the way, one heart at a time. Dawn found Emily in her office, reviewing reports from the various Empathy Project centers around the world. The changes implemented after her journey to the ancient ruins had brought impressive results. Incidents of misuse of the empathic gift had dropped dramatically, while reports of successful healings and personal transformations increased every day. A soft knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. It was Elizabeth, her expression a mix of excitement and concern. "Emily, you need to see this," she said, turning on the large screen on the wall. The images that filled the screen were heartbreaking. Refugees fleeing war zones, communities devastated by natural disasters, ethnic tensions escalating in various parts of the globe. "The world is in crisis," Elizabeth explained, her voice heavy with emotion. "And many are looking to us for answers." Emily felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. The Empathy Project had grown beyond her wildest expectations, but now they faced a challenge on a global scale. "Call an emergency meeting," Emily decided. "We need the whole team for this." Hours later, the conference room was packed. William, Dr. Harrison, Dr. Sophia, and leaders from Empathy Project centers around the world were in attendance, some in person, others via video conference. "What we're seeing," Emily began, her voice steady, "is a call to action. We can no longer be content with training individuals or conducting research. It's time to apply what we've learned on a much larger scale." She outlined an ambitious plan. Teams of trained empaths would be sent to conflict zones and disaster areas. Empathy training programs would be offered to world leaders and decision-makers. And, most importantly, a global campaign would be launched to teach basic empathy techniques to millions of people. "It's risky," William pondered. "We will be engaging in politically sensitive situations. Not everyone will view our presence favorably." Dr. Harrison agreed. "Moreover, how do we ensure that our techniques are not misused in such volatile contexts?" Emily Thompson listened carefully to all the concerns. They were valid and reflected the challenges they would face, but she also knew they couldn't stand still. "I understand the risks," she replied, "but think about the potential. Imagine conflict mediators who can truly feel and understand both sides of a dispute, or rescue teams that can locate survivors not just with technology, but with enhanced empathy." Dr. Sophia Reynolds, who had been silent until then, finally spoke. "The ancient healers didn't hide in temples. They went where they were most needed, no matter the danger." One by one, the team members began to nod, determination replacing the fear in their eyes. "How do we begin?" asked Elizabeth Carter, already ready for action. The following months were a whirlwind of activity. Teams were formed and trained to operate in different scenarios. Partnerships were established with international organizations and governments. The Empathy Project campus transformed into a global command center, coordinating operations across all continents. Emily found herself constantly traveling, from refugee camps in Africa to negotiation rooms at the UN. In each place, she saw the profound impact that the empathic gift could have. In a refugee camp in Syria, she worked with children traumatized by war, using empathic techniques to help them process their experiences and begin to heal. "It's like you can see inside me," said one girl, her eyes shining with a mix of surprise and relief, "and somehow that makes the pain feel smaller." In a tense meeting between leaders of conflicting nations, Emily guided an empathic connection exercise. The result was surprising. Men who had been exchanging accusations moments ago now looked at each other with new eyes, able to see each other's humanity. But not everything was success. There were moments of doubt, exhaustion, and apparent failure. On a particularly difficult night, After a failed attempt to mediate an ethnic conflict, Emily found herself questioning everything. It was William Carter who found her, sitting alone in the hotel garden where they were staying. "Sometimes I wonder if we're really making a difference," Emily confessed, her voice weary. "The world seems so broken." William sat beside her, putting an arm around her shoulders. "Remember that night in the cafeteria? You made a difference for one person, and that changed everything." His words touched something deep within Emily. She remembered the teaching of her ancestors. The power of empathy lay in creating space for change, one heart at a time. With renewed determination, Emily dove back into work. And slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, things began to change. Reports began to come in from around the world, conflicts being resolved peacefully, communities coming together to overcome disasters, ordinary people practicing empathy in their daily lives. 1 year after the global initiative's launch, Emily found herself back in the Empathy Project conference room, but this time the atmosphere was one of celebration. "The results are undeniable," Dr. Harrison announced, displaying charts and statistics. "We're seeing significant reductions in conflicts, improvements in global mental health indicators, even positive impacts on the economy." Elizabeth Carter added, "And the most impressive thing is how it's spreading. We're no longer the only ones teaching these techniques. It's as if we've started a wave of empathy that now moves on its own." Emily looked at the smiling faces around her, feeling a mix of gratitude and admiration. Every person in that room had given their all to make this dream a reality. Touching her pendant, she thought of her ancestors, the women who had carried this gift through the centuries. They had preserved this wisdom for a moment like this, when the world needed it most. "Our work is far from over," Emily said, her voice filled with emotion and determination. "But today, we can celebrate. Celebrate the fact that together we are reminding humanity of its most fundamental power, the power to connect, to understand, to love." As the room erupted in applause, Emily felt a deep sense of purpose. The Empathy Project had become more than a training program or a research initiative. It was a global movement, a quiet revolution that was, step by step, heart by heart, transforming the world. And Emily knew that no matter the challenges still to come, they would face them together, guided by the timeless power of true empathy. The sun had barely risen when Emily was awakened by an urgent buzz on her smartphone. It was William, his voice tense even through the phone line. "Emily, we need you at the command center immediately. Something's happened." Minutes later, still, adjusting her clothes, Emily entered the main control room of the Empathy Project. The atmosphere was frantic, with teams working on monitors and screens displaying news from around the world. "What's going on?" Emily asked, feeling the tension in the air. Elizabeth approached, her face pale with worry. "It's a global crisis, Emily. We're getting reports from all our centers around the world. It seems like people are losing their empathic abilities." Emily's heart sank. "What do you mean?" Dr. Harrison joined them, holding a tablet with alarming graphs. "In the last 24 hours, we've seen a sharp decline in empathic activity readings. It's as if humanity is emotionally disconnecting." Emily looked at the screens around her, showing scenes of conflict erupting in once peaceful cities, people ignoring those in need, a sudden spike in crime and violence. "This doesn't make sense," she murmured, instinctively touching her pendant. "How can this be happening on a global scale?" Dr. Sophia, who was analyzing data in a corner, looked up. "Emily, I think we need to consider unconventional possibilities." "What do you mean?" William asked, frowning. "Remember the ancient legends," Dr. Sophia explained, her voice low but intense. "They spoke of cycles, of times of great connection followed by periods of emotional darkness. What if we're entering one of those periods?" A heavy silence fell over the room. The idea seemed fantastical, almost absurd. But after everything they had seen and experienced with the Empathy Project, no one was willing to completely dismiss the possibility. Emily closed her eyes, trying to tune into her gift, seeking guidance. That's when she felt it. A strange resistance, as if a dense fog was forming around her empathic perception. "Something's wrong," she said, opening her eyes. "I can feel it. It's like a barrier is forming between people." "What can we do?" Elizabeth Carter asked, her voice trembling slightly. Emily Thompson took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. "First, we need to understand the extent of this. I want reports from all our centers, detailed analyses of empathic activity patterns. William, contact our government and international partners. We need to know how this is affecting different regions and cultures." She turned to Dr. Sophia Reynolds. "We need more information about these ancient legends. If this has happened before, there might be clues on how to reverse the process." The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Reports came in from all over the world, each more alarming than the last. Governments reached out, seeking guidance and assistance. The global media was in a frenzy, with conspiracy theories and panic spreading rapidly. Amid the chaos, Emily briefly retreated to the therapeutic garden. She needed a moment to center herself, to seek guidance. Sitting in the circle of stones they had built based on ancient ruins, Emily closed her eyes and began to meditate. She sought a connection with her ancestors, those wise women who had guided her path thus far. Suddenly she felt a familiar presence. Opening her eyes, she saw the ethereal figure of her grandmother before her. "The balance has been disrupted, my dear," her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. "The world has forgotten the eternal dance between connection and individuality." "How can we fix this?" Emily asked, desperate for answers. Her grandmother's figure smiled gently. "The cure will not come from outside but from within. Each person must rediscover their own capacity for connection. You have planted the seeds of empathy around the world. Now, it is time to help them bloom even in the most barren soil." With those words, the vision faded, leaving Emily with newfound clarity and determination. Returning to the command center, she found the team still working frantically. But now, Emily knew what they needed to do. "Listen, everyone," she called, her voice firm and clear. "We have a new plan." As she explained her vision, Emily saw hope reignite in her team's eyes. They were facing the greatest challenge of their lives, a crisis that threatened the very fabric of human society. But now they had a path forward. The Empathy Project was about to embark on its most ambitious mission yet, reigniting the flame of human connection in a world rapidly sinking into the darkness of emotional disconnection. As the team mobilized around her, Emily felt a mix of fear and determination. The future was uncertain, but she knew they would not face this challenge alone. With the wisdom of their ancestors guiding the way and the power of empathic gifts in their hearts, they would fight to bring light back to a world losing its ability to connect and understand. The battle for the soul of humanity had begun.